Welcome to the next class of Kumarasambhavam. We have begun Sloka 15, the text of which reads like this: Aranya Bijanjali Dana Lalitaha Tathacha Tasyam Harinaha Vishashvasuhu Yatha Tadiyair Nayanaih Kutuhalat Purassakhinam Amimita Lochane. In this verse it is said that the deer in the hermitage became very confident, unfearing, and such was the immensity of the confidence that they gained regarding Parvati herself and her friends and the surroundings, that even when she pressed her own eyes with theirs, they would not protest. This is the gist of the verse. We will first give the Anvaya. Aranya Bijanjali Dana Lalitaha Harinaha Cha Tasyam Tatha Vishashvasuhu Yatha Tadiyaihi Nayanaihi Sakhinam Lochane Purah Kutuhalat Amimita. Harinaha refers to the deer. Vishashvasuhu means trusted. The deers trusted. Trusted in whom? Tasyam, in her, in Parvati. The deer are naturally very pusillanimous, very timid, and therefore they do not trust people easily. But here the deer had full trust in her. They developed full trust in her. What is the intensity of the trust that they developed in her? Tatha means in such a manner or to such an extent. The intensity is indicated here. Such was the trust that was reposed by the deer in Parvati. Now, the counterpart of Tatha, such, is given in the latter half of the verse, commencing with Yatha. Now, this trust they developed on account of being tended by Parvati. Lalitaha means tended by Parvati by the offer of dana. Anjali, handfuls of the bija, the grains in the forest grains, the wild grains that she offered to the harinas, the deer, that inspired high confidence in her among the deer. The intensity of the confidence is given in the second half of the verse. Yatha tadiyair nayanaih kutuhalat purassakhinam amimita lochane. That the deer did not protest when Parvati did this action, namely Lochane Amimita. So, here take the Adhyahara of Sa Parvati. Lochane means the eyes. Amimita, measured. She measured the eyes. Tadiyair Nayanaihi, with the eyes of those of the deer. Tadiya refers to those of the deer. Kutuhalat, out of curiosity. Purassakhinam, in front of her friends. So, the deer came to repose trust in her, Vishashvasuhu, in Parvati, because the familiarity between the two grew and grew as she fondled them. Lalita is tended or fondled by making a loving offering of the wild grains in her own handfuls, in her own Anjali. So, it is this that made the deer gradually develop their full trust and confidence in Parvati. And there was a test that could be given for the immensity of the confidence that was developed by the deer in her, and that test was the case of Parvati measuring the lochane, measuring the eyes, her own eyes with theirs, tadiyaihi nayanaihi, with those of the deer. So comparing her own eyes with those of the deer. So the two sets of eyes are being compared here, the set of eyes of Parvati and the set of eyes of the deer. This she did kutuhalat, out of curiosity, and purasakhinam, right in front of her friends. There is also an alternative construction suggested for this verse, namely she measured her friend's eyes, sakhinam lochane amimita. So with those of the deer, tadiyaihi nayanaihi. So this is also an alternative construction that is possible. So either she compared her own eyes with the eyes of the deer, or compared the eyes of the deer of her friends with those of the deer. So the two alternative constructions are possible. So in either case, it shows the degree of intimacy that the deer and Parvati had. The deer would not give liberties to a person to do such acts as these, and it is only a person in whom they trust in full that they allow such things to be done. The eyes are the tenderest parts of any human being or any animal, and when something is brought near the eye, any animal would grow extra careful and would try to run away from. And in this case, such was the immensity of the confidence that the deer had developed in Parvati, that even when she brought her own eyes close to their own eyes, or as the alternative construction makes us accept, she placed the eyes of her own friends with those of the deer, so juxtaposing them. So even then they did not protest. So that is only hinted in the verse, it is not expressly stated that they did not protest, but the expression visheshvasuhu, they trusted, shows that they would tolerate even such things and would not get afraid or worried about the consequence of such actions of Parvati. Aranya Bijanjali Danalalitaha is an adjective for Harinaha. So Harinaha is M13, masculine, Prathama Vibhakti Bahuchana, Pullinga Prathama Vibhakti Bahuchana, Harinaha, Harinaha, Harinau, Harinaha. The Strilinga form would be Harinyaha, so it is Harinaha here. So which are Dana Lalita, Lalitaha is also M13 as it is an adjective for Harinaha. So Kidrishaha Harinaha, Aranya Bijanjali Dana Lalitaha. The dissolution for Aranya Bijanjali Dana Lalitaha is Aranye, that is Aranye Bhavani Bijani, gives the form Aranya Bijani, and Tesham, that is Aranya Bijanam Anjalayaha. Aranya Bijanjalayaha. Tesham Danam, Aranya Bijanjalinam Danam, or you can have Danani, the offerings made. That must have been done very many times, and therefore you can have the plural here in the dissolution of the compound. So Aranya Bijanjali Danani, Taihi Lalitaha, Aranya Bijanjali Danaihi Lalitaha, Harinaha. So those deer which were tended by Parvati with the offerings of the wild grains. So such Harinaha Tasyam obviously refers to Parvatyam, Tatha Vishashvasuhu. So this is from V plus the root is Shwas. Shwasa Pranane is the root, and this is the lit form, the past tense form, the perfect form, lit Prathama Purusha Bahuvachana form. The forms are Shashvasa, Shashvasatuhu, Shashvasuhu, Shashvasitha, Shashvasathuhu, Shashvasa, 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 Shashvasiva, Shashvasima. These are the forms of this root in the lit lakara. So Harinaha Vishashvasuhu, the deer, she trusted her, they confided in her so very much. Now, even in the context of her measuring the eyes, so Lochane is Lochanam, Lochane, Lochanani, in the Dvitiya Vibhakti. Therefore, this is Navumsakalinga Dvitiya Vibhakti Bahuvachana. So, Sa Lochane Amimita, she measured the eyes, and Amimita is from root Ma. So, she has the sense of mana. So, it is in the lang lakara. So, the forms are Amimita, Amimatam, Amimata, Amimithaha, Amimatham, Amimidhvam, Amimi, Amimi Vahi, Amimi Mahi. So, these are the forms of root Ma in the past tense. So, Sakhinam Purataha. So, the masculine form would be Sakhin Shabda. So, Sakha would be masculine form. Here they have the feminine form Sakhi. So, the plural has been used here rather than Dyochana, and therefore, apart from Jaya and Vijaya, there must have been one more person there. So, Sakhinam Puraha. So, in front of her friends. Now, the deer would not probably have protested if Parvati did this action while she was alone with them, and the animals, the pet animals, they would get afraid when things are done or such liberties are taken in the presence of other persons. But this did not deter the animals from enjoying the confidence of Parvati. So, they would not run away from Parvati, and they would still bear with all such acts of Parvati because they had immense confidence in her. So, the synonyms for Sakhi are given in the Amarkosha as Alis, Sakhi, Vayasyacha. The words Ali, Sakhi and Vayasya. So, all these are synonymous. And Malinatha in this context says Lochane Amimita Akshiparimana Taratamya Jnanasya Manam Chakara. So, the Parimana is the bigness of the eyes, and Taratamya refers to what is big and what is small. So, Taratamya Jnanasya Manam Chakara, she was measuring the eyes. So, as to whose eyes were bigger, those of the deer or those of her friends, or alternately those of her own self. So, her own eyes. So, this she did out of curiosity. It was a sort of a test, and she just wanted to know how they would react. So, there are 4 words which are synonymous in Sanskrit, namely Kutuka and Kautuka, and Kutuhala and Kautuhala. So, all the 4 words are synonymous. So, here the word Kutuhala is used. So, out of Kutuhala, out of curiosity, Parvati did this test. Now, it is common to compare the eyes of young girls, the ones that have good and beautiful eyes, with those of the deer. So, the expression in Sanskrit Mrugakshi is a very common one, where the dissolution is given as Mrugasya Akshini Iva Akshini Yasyaha Sa. And as this is a standard comparison, the comparison of the eyes, her own eyes with those of the deer, is a very common thing. Now, the standard of comparison is usually characterized by 2 features, namely Prasiddhi. So, it should be a famous one, and it should also have an extraordinary intensity. So, so much so that even though the two are compared, the standard of comparison has an intensity which is not present, not likely to be present in the object of comparison or the upameya. So, here see, by the fact that Parvati measured her own eyes with those of the deer shows that the two were almost equal, and this indicates the beauty of the eyes of Parvati. Though she had given up the tremulousness of the glances that the deer have, so which she has now as it were deposited in the deer, so still the bigness of the eyes and the dark pupil of the eyes, etc., are matters of comparison. So, the word lalitaha is from root lalu. There are two roots called lalu in Sanskrit. One is lala vilase in the prathamagana. So, in the bhuvadi, so lalate, lalete, lalante, and in the 10th gana also we have in the churadi lala ipsayam, which is ubhayapadin, and therefore you would have the form lalayati, lalayataha, lalayanti, and so on. So, in either case it is root lalu plus nich, for which you have the past participle passive form. For the root in the 10th gana, even directly it may, even without nich, you may have that form, and with the addition of nich also the same form would be had, and therefore lalitaha is from root lalu. So, this qualifies harinaha. Malinath also says, Yameva khalu vishwasasya parakashtha yat akshipidanepi na kshubhnanti iti bhavaha. So, this is the very pinnacle of the kind of confidence that the deer had, that even when their own eyes were troubled, so on account of this act of pressing close to her own cheek or near her eyes, na kshubhnanti, they would not get agitated, and therefore there was not the slightest trace of fear or worry or anxiety in the minds of the deer, and as a consequence, so even when she brought her own eyes close to their eyes, they would not protest. The formation of the word tadiya is as tasya idam tadiyam, that is in a general sense, and in our context as the reference is to the harinas, so we have tesham imani giving form tadiyani. Because they qualify the word nayanaihi, nayana being nahumsakalinga tritiya vibhakti ekvachana bahuvachana. So, we have tadiyaihi nayanaihi, so tesham imani tadiyani, taihi tadiyaihi. Like the word tadiya, we also have in Sanskrit the tadita formations as in madiya or asmadiya, yushmadiya and tvadiya and so on. So, tadiyaihi nayanaihi kutuhalat sa amimita. So, she made the offerings of the palmfuls. Anjali is palmful or handful of the wild grains, and the deer developed immense trust in her tapas. This is also a mark of an index of the progress of tapas. So calm should a person's mind be that it radiates, say, abhaya to people around, and therefore the deer themselves would develop an immensity of confidence. So, it is not for some selfish purpose that the deer are being tended here, but out of sheer love, so which is utterly unselfish, and this is also a mark of the progress of tapas, and Kalidasa indicates this, gives these as an indication to the progress of tapas in Parvati. We shall go to the next verse now, Shloka number 16. Kritabhishekam Hutajata Vedasam Tvaguttarasangavatим Adhitinim Didrikshavastaam Rishayobhyupagaman na dharma vruddheshu vayas samikshate. Kritabhishekam hutajata vedasam tvaguttarasangavatī madhitinim didrikshavastaam rishayobhyupagaman nadharma vruddheshu vayas samikshate. In this shloka, the four activities of Parvati are mentioned here, namely snana, homa, uttariya dharana and adhyayana. These four are listed in the first half of the verse. So this is also an indication of the lifestyle of Parvati as an ascetic and indicative of the success of her tapas and the good progress of her tapas is the arrival of the sages to visit Parvati. And Kalidasa takes this occasion to point out that in the case of those who are advanced in dharma, age is not a matter of consideration. Tam didrikshavaha, tam refers to Parvatim. Parvatim didrikshavaha, rishayaha, the sages. Abhyupagaman, they arrived there. Sages came to the place where Parvati was performing tapas. Why did they come there? They just wanted to see her. So, to see her. Sages came to Parvati to see her. How was she? Tam, Parvatim, is qualified by four adjectives here. Kritabhishekam tam, hutajata vedasam tam, tvaguttarasangavatим tam, and adhitinim tam. So these four adjectives qualify tam, and these four adjectives show the four actions that Parvati undertook as an ascetic. So Kritabhishekam, Abhisheka is the holy bath or ablution. Kritabhishekam, she would take her holy bath. Hutajata Vedasam, she made the offerings, Huta, the offerings into the fire. Jata Vedas is fire. She made the offerings into the fire. So, after snana, so Krita Abhishekam refers to the activity of her snana and Hutajata Vedasam to the activity of homa. So, she used to perform her homa also. So, Hutajata Vedasam. And as her Uttara Sangha, this upper garment, she had only the bark of the tree. So, Parvati wore the bark garment, and having the upper garment also made of the bark, Uttadutara Sangavatim, Vatim, the Vat portion here shows sense of possession, possessing this upper garment made of the bark, should also do her Adhyena. Adhitinim means she who made her Adhyena. So, there is no exact equivalent for Adhyena, and therefore, it is rendered sometimes as her constant prayers. So, it is the utterance of the mantras, etc. So, that she used to do. So, Adhitinim. As she was thus involved in all the activities that come to be characterized by advanced austerities, the sages themselves came to visit her, so to see her. And in this context, Kalidasa says, vayas or age is not taken into account. So, samikshite is taken into account, to be taken with na. So, it means na samikshite, therefore, not taken into account. In the case of those who are advanced, vriddha means advanced in matters of dharma. There is no easy translation for dharma, though it is sometimes rendered by the word law, sometimes by virtue, sometimes by the word merit, and so on. There is no equivalent for the word dharma in English. So, dharma vriddheshu vayaha nasamikshate, age is not considered a factor in the case of those who are advanced in dharma. Now, this shloka shows the 4 activities of Parvati, which all show the advanced stage of her tapas. So, she would perform her holy ablutions every day. So, this doing of abhisheka, so this the word itself is derived from abhi plus seka. So, seka is pouring of the water, and abhi upon oneself. So, it refers to the shirasnana that can be taken up by the ascetics, and so much is the importance given to snana that there is a saying snanamula kriya sarvaha, all holy activities are to be taken up only after the performance of snana, and therefore, in accordance with that, Parvati did her snana first. So, the dissolution for this compound is kritaha, abhishekaha, yaya, sa becomes kritabhisheka, and tam. So, we have the word tam here, and kritabhishekam. So, this is F21, Strilinga, Dvitiya, Bhakti, Ekvachana, and obviously the adjectives of that word are all F21, Strilinga, Dvitiya, Bhakti, Ekvachana. Kritabhishekam, she performed her ablution. There is a reference to a frequent performance of the snana, and there is in fact in Sanskrit we have the expression Trishavana Snai, a person who takes bath thrice a day. So, such is the importance given to Shaucha as a part of tapas, and therefore Parvati did her abhisheka or took her ablutions, and then she also performed the homa, Huta Jata Vedasam. So, Jata Vedas Tanunapat, says Amarkosha in the listing the synonyms of Agni, and so the fuller list is Agnir Vaishwanaro Vanhir Vitihotro Dhananjayaha Kripita Yonirjvalanaha Jata Vedas Tanunapat. So, these are the synonyms of Jata Vedas. So, the word Jata Vedas refers to fire. So, Huta, So it is from root hu danadanayoho. So huta means made offerings in two. Hutaha jatavedaha yaya sa. So that becomes huta jatavedaha. Tam is huta jatavedasam. Huta jatavedasam tam. So this word, though it looks like a masculine because it ends in sakaranta. This huta jatavedas is a strilinga word, but jatavedas itself is a masculine word, and jatavedas is a sakaranta napumsakalinga word and is declined like vedas. We have the form vedaha, vedasau, vedasaha. We have jata vedaha, jata vedasau, jata vedasaha. So here hutaha jata vedaha yaya sa also becomes huta jata vedaha. So tam is huta jata vedasam. The forms of huta jata vedas would be as in the masculine. So here this is Dvitiya Vibhakti Ekvachana. So huta jata vedasam tam parvatim. So like krita abhishekam, this word also qualifies tam, so refers to Parvati. So this is strilinga. This is the second adjective that has been given here, and the third adjective that has been given is Tvaguttarasangabatim. So Tvak is the bark garment. Tvak literally means skin. So it is the bark of the tree that she wore. There is a reference to Valkala already given. So that was taken as the Uttarasanga. Uttarasanga is the same as Uttariya. So she had as her Uttariya the bark of the tree. The Amarakosha gives the synonyms as Dvau pravara ottarasangau samau brihatika tatha sankhyanam uttariyancha. These are given as the synonyms of the upper garment. And the word uttarasanga itself is to be dissolved as uttare, referring to the upper portion of the body, urdhva bhage. Asajyate is uttarasanga. Uttarasanga. She came to have that uttarasangaha asyaha asti iti uttarasangavati. So tam uttarasangavatim. Now the tvak itself was the uttarasanga for her, and therefore tvak eva uttarasangaha asyaha asti. Now as the tvach or the tree bark was itself converted into the uttarasanga, the resolution can also be made as tvacha uttarasangaha asyaha asti iti tvaguttarasangavati. So she had made the bark as the upper garment. Now it is said that in the earlier times even women used to perform, they used to have Maunji Bandhana and the performance of Homa and Japa and so on. Pura kalpetu narina Maunji Bandhana mishyate is a statement from certain smritis. So Tvaguttara Sangavatim Adhitinim. The dissolution for this is Adhitam Asyaha Asti. In the feminine, it becomes Tvaguttara Adhitinim. So in the masculine, the form would be Adhitin, Adhiti, Adhitinau, Adhitinaha. If it is masculine form, the feminine form is Adhitini. So this word also qualifies tam, and therefore this also is F21, Strilinga Ditiya Vibhakti Ekvachana. Malinatha comments on this word Aditini, saying Stuti Pathadi Kurvatim. So she used to mutter her prayers. So even as Parvati was doing all these things, namely Abhisheka, Homa, and then Uttariya Dharana, and the Adhyayana. So even as all these things were being done by Parvati, the rishis themselves got interested in this kind of progress made by Parvati. So Rishayaha, the sages, Abhipagaman, they arrived there. Abhi and Upa are two upasargas here, plus root Gam, Gamalrigatau. So for which it is the lung form. The forms in lung would be agachat, agachatam, agachan, agachaha, agachatam, agachata, and agacham, agachava, agachama. The forms in lung are agamat, agamatam, agaman, agamaha, agamatam, agamata, agamam, agamama, agamama. So these are the forms. So Rishayaha Abhipagaman, the sages arrived there to where Parvati was. Now there is an interesting definition for Rishi in Sanskrit. There are two definitions. Tapo nirdhuta papmanaha yatha tathyabhidayinaha veda vedanga tattvajnaha rishayah parikirtitaha is one definition for Rishi. Those who have done away with all their sins by means of tapas, tapo nirdhuta papmanaha, and those who adherence to the utterance of truth, yatha tathyabhidayinaha, and those who are proficient in the spiritual lore, the sacred lore, namely the Vedas and the Vedangas, Veda Vedanga Tattvajnaha Rishayah Parikirtitaha. Yet another definition is Urdhvaretas Tapasyograha Niyatashi cha Sanyami Shapanugrahayos Shaktaha Satyasandho Bhaved Rishihi. So a Rishi is a person whose retas is turned upwards. So it is the Nivritti Dharma in its consummation. And Tapasyograha, he is very fierce in his tapas, very intense in the performance of the austerities. And in his eating also, in his food also, is highly regulated. And he is a person of utmost self-control. And he is also capable of uttering imprecations and also conferring favors and boons. And one who adheres to truth, so who never fails his own promises. So such a person is to be considered as a rishi. And such rishis came to see Parvati. So it is when a person becomes famous as having advanced in any particular field that others come to see him. So in the case of Parvati, obviously the fame must have spread about Parvati performing a great tapas, and therefore sages came to her. Sometimes when we visit the great, by the way they behave itself, there may be many things to learn. So that is why even Arjuna asks in the Bhagavad Gita, Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha, etc. So the very way of speech, the very way they sit and stand or move about, so can show us many secrets of tapas. And therefore their attitude and the style of their functions and activities can hold many clues, and certainly discussions with them will bring out many of the secrets of tapas. And therefore the sages themselves would like to know how Parvati was making such immense austerities and progressing therein, and therefore they chose to visit her rather than her going to visit them. They chose to visit her. The sages were generally men, and Parvati is a woman, and the sages are certainly older and Parvati is young, and therefore disregarding the considerations of age and sex, the sages came to her where Parvati was rather than expecting Parvati to visit them. So the quality of tapas that Parvati was performing was so great and immense, and of such a high order that the sages chose to make a visit to Parvati, so in order to learn things from her and watch the kind of progress that she was making. And therefore, this was the interest that was generated in the sages to come and see the kind of austerities that are being performed by Parvati. Now, Kalidasa takes this occasion to make a general statement. The universal statement is given in the last pada, the last quarter of the verse, na dharma vruddheshu vayas samikshate. So, the figure of speech in such cases is what is known as arthantaranyasa. Kalidasa's arthantaranyasas are as charming as his upamas, and his works abound in lokoktis that are embodied in arthantaranyasa contexts. The definition of arthantaranyasa being uktir arthantaranyasaha syat samanya visheshayoho. So, in this context he says, in the case of those who are dharma vruddha, those who are advanced in dharma, age is not taken into account at all. Age is no consideration. So, in Manusmriti we have the expression natena vruddho bhavati yenasya palitam shiraha yova yuvapyadhiyanaha tam devas thaviram vidhuhu. So, the adhiyana is a person who is highly revered, even if he is young in age. We can see that the expression adhitinim refers to the same thing as adhiyana. So, therefore, even though Parvati was herself a yuvati, the old sages, so they made it a point to visit her hermitage. Now, a parallel to this idea is obtained in Bhavabhuti's Uttararamacharita, where he says Gunav puja sthanam gunishu nachalingam nachavayaha. In Sanskrit we have the expressions like, see, for just as we have here the word here dharma vruddha. In fact, vruddhas are considered as of 4 types. So, one is dharma vruddha, other is vayo vruddha, and then jnana vruddha and vairagya vruddha. These are the 4 types of vruddhas that are detailed in the Dharma Shastras. And here Parvati was a dharma vruddha, she was not a vayo vruddha, and therefore the sages themselves came to her, the sages who must have been vayo vruddhas. So, the jnana vruddha is the superior, and therefore they came to visit Parvati. We also have words like tapo vruddha and dhana vruddha also in Sanskrit. So, many such constructions are possible, but these are the 4 types that are given in the Dharma Shastras. Now, it is only a person who is himself endowed with merit that can recognize the merit in others, and it is these sages who were struggling with their own austerities that could see the ease with which Parvati was progressing in her tapas, and therefore they came to see her. There is a saying in Sanskrit that it is only a person who knows, who himself is endowed with merits and knows what the merits are, that can recognize the merit in other persons and another person. Gunini gunagno ramate na gunino gunini paritoshaha. And therefore the sages are themselves full of joy when they saw Parvati progressing in tapas. So, rather than feeling envious of the tapas of Parvati, they thought it was worthy of emulation, and therefore they came to Parvati. And so, didrikshavaha is to be analyzed as drashtum ichchavaha. This is from the root drishir prekshane. So, they came to see the kind of progress that Parvati was making. The synonyms for the word dharma that is given in Amar Kosha are syat dharma mastriyam punyashreyasi sukritam vrishaha. The word vrisha, vrishastu bhagavan dharmaha, as one would say. So, na dharma vruddheshu vayas samikshate. This is from sam plus root iksh. So, for which we have the karmani construction, and this is let prathama purusha ekvachana. Vayaha na samikshate. Vayaha is navamsakalinga prathama vibhakti ekvachana here. Of all navamsakalinga shabdas, so the forms in prathama and dvitiya are the same, and therefore we must make an explicit mention of whether the word is in Prathama Vibhakti or in Dvitiya Vibhakti whenever that form is used. The word Vayaha itself is polysemic, it has several meanings. So, Vayaha of course means age, but Vayas also means a bird in Sanskrit. So, the Amar Kosha says Khaga Balyadinor Vayaha. In the Medini Kosha we have the expression Vayaf Pakshini Balyadau Yauvanecha Navumsakam. So, in this shloka Kalidasa has shown how Parvati made good progress in her tapas, as a consequence of which even the older sages felt like visiting her, and they did visit her, and the rishis are totally free from prejudice in matters of gender and age, and therefore if there was something for them to learn from a person who is advanced in tapas, they would happily go and learn from that person. This shows the open-mindedness of the sages, and this also shows the simplicity of Parvati, and she did not make any presentation of the same, making it wide known to the world, but Yadyasti Saurabhya Gunadhiyogaha Swayam Patantyeva Sumeshu Bhringaha. As per that maxim, the sages themselves came to her. We shall go to the next verse. Virodhi Satvojhita Purva Matsaram Drumair Abhishta Prasavarchita Tithi Navotajabhyantara Sambhritanalam Tapovanam Tacha Bahuva Pavanam. So, in this shloka, Kalidasa shows how the Tapovana became extremely sacred. Virodhi Satvojhita Purva Matsaram Drumair Abhishta Prasavarchita Tithi. Navotajabhyantara Sambhritanalam Tapovanantacha Babhuva Pavanam. So, Kalidasa says that Tapovana or hermitage, Tat Tapovanam, Pavanam Babhuva. Pavanam is sacred. Babhuva means became. The Tapovana became sacred. We shall refer to the Anvaya of the shloka here. Virodhi Satvojhita Purva Matsaram Drumaihi Abhishta Prasavarchita Tithi Navotajabhyantara Sambhritanalam Cha Tat Tapovanam Pavanam Babhuva. So, Tat Tapovanam Pavanam Babhuva is the kernel sentence. How was that Tapovanam? Now, the remaining words of the shloka in the first three lines, they are all adjectival to the word Tapovanam. So, Tapovanam is the subject of the sentence, and therefore this is Navamsakalinga Prathama Vibhakti Ekavachana form, and all the three words in the first line, first three lines, so all compound words, all are Navamsakalinga Prathama Vibhakti Ekavachana. So, Virodhi Satvojhita Purva Matsaram is one adjective, Drumair Abhishta Prasavarchita Tithi is another adjective, Navotajabhyantaralina Sambhritanalam is a third adjective. So, all these three adjectives qualify Tapovanam. That Tapovanam became sacred. Now, the qualifications all indicate the cause. So, why was that Tapovanam said to have become sacred? The first feature is Virodhi Sattvojhita Purva Matsaram. Matsaram is the animosity. Purva is earlier. Ujjita means abandoned. By Sattva is animal. Virodhi means inimical. So, naturally inimical animals, they are Virodhi Sattva. Sattva refers to the animals here. So, animals which are naturally irritated by each other, such animals, they shed. Ujjita means abandoning, shedding. They shed their earlier animosity. So, the feeling of enmity that they had, so that was shed by the animals. This is the reason number 1 for Tapona being Pavana. And the reason number 2 is Drumair Abhishta Prasavarchita Atithi. Atithi is a reference to the guests that would arrive there, and those guests would be worshipped by the prasava or the yield, the putting forth of fruits, the desired fruits, abhishta, prasava, by the trees, drumaihi. This is reason number 2 for the Tapona being called Pavana. So, the trees there would offer to the guests whatever yield they desired. This is number 2. The third reason for that is that in the fresh cottage, Nava Utaja, in the interior of the same, Abhyantara is the interior, the fire was kindled, Sambhrita Anala. So, for these 3 reasons, the Tapona is said to have become very sacred. Now, there are animals, so which have a natural enmity or are irritated by each other by the mere presence. Sometimes you see, cats and dogs can show this behavior, or dogs and monkeys can show this behavior, the lion and the lamb or the deer can show this behavior, and so on. Now, this kind of earlier animosity, the given animosity of animals, so the natural animosity of animals, so that was given up. Ujjita means given up by such animals which are naturally inimical towards each other. Now, there is a saying in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, Ahimsa pratisthayam tatsannidhau vairatyagaha. So, this way there was a total vairatyaga of the animals amidst animals which are naturally irritated towards each other. Now, this is possible only when there is ahimsa pratishtha. So, where ahimsa is, that is, the person who performs tapas must have this total absence of any feeling of himsa towards any creature, be it the smallest insect. So, he must take utmost care to see that no animal or even insect or even plant is hurt by his actions. So, it is impossible for any person to live without himsa, and consciously or unconsciously activities of himsa will be taking place continuously. But as the Smritis say, adrohenaiva bhutanam alpadrohena va punaha. So, it is such care that is to be taken regarding the animals or the tiniest of beings, and therefore, when such care is taken, so when that is a conscious endeavor to see that no creature is hurt by one's actions or even by one's utterances and so on, can then be ahimsa said to be established. So, this ahimsa pratishtha has its effect on the surroundings also. So much so that even the wild creatures themselves become tame and rid of all animosity towards each other, and therefore this becomes a place where the quietude reigns supreme, and therefore such kind of tranquility so came to be in the penance grove of Parvati, that even wild animals shed their wild behavior and began to behave in a tame manner, and especially their attitude towards animals that they usually are irritated by, so was totally rid of all animosity, and they showed immense friendship with such animals, and therefore this is a mark of the progress of penance, and therefore this shows how Parvati progressed in her tapas. We can stop at this point, and we shall continue the verse in the next class.